where we're going to first listen to customers around any issue in the business.
Hello, everybody. It's Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, father, six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, as I said a little earlier, Christmas has come early for the Stenziano family. How you doing, bro?
Doing wonderful. Yeah, really, really excited today. We have an amazing guest. Today's guest is Steven Robinson. Steven is the former executive vice president and chief marketing officer of Chick-fil-A and author of Covert Cows, How Faith, Cows, and Chicken Built an Iconic Brand. During his 34-year tenure, Steve was an integral part involved in the company's growth from 184 stores, 100 million in sales in 1981 to more than 2,100 stores and more than 6.8 billion with a B annual sales in 2015. So without further ado, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. And Gino. Thank you both.
It's our pleasure, right?
Yeah.
So first off, we're huge fans. I'd even say raving fans of the book and of Chick-fil-A. So we would just like to get this started off with a brief story. Tell us a little bit about the early days when you first started with the organization and you know what the culture was like.
Well, to do that justice, I really have to start with my last interview with the founder, Truett Cathy. They didn't have a marketing department, and I was director of marketing at Six Flags of Georgia at the time, and they'd approached me about coming to Chick-fil-A and starting a marketing department. And I had a great job in a terrific city here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I was interviewing stealth, and I'll shorten the story by saying my last interview with Truett is now 5 months into the interview process. Yeah, not 5 days, 5 months.
Well, long term, Gino.
I'm doing all this, on my own personal time undercover. So anyway, so I'm starting to get a little, shall we say, cautious and concerned about how long I can keep a lid on this. So I just looked at Truett and said, Truett, look, I love what you got going here. I love the private company. I love your culture. I like your product. I really like the operator model you've set up. I think I could help you, but what are you looking for in the ideal marketing candidate? Am I the guy? Because this is all getting a little tenuous. And there was this long pause, and he put down a sandwich. We were eating in his office. And he said, I have absolutely no idea, whatever it is, I just don't want to do it. And I thought, now that's a very unusual answer. He's looking for a chief marketing guy, and he doesn't know what it is he wants me to do. But he wasn't finished. He said, I'm trusting Jimmy, who was the COO. I'm trusting Jimmy and others to figure out if you can do the job. I'm more concerned about who you are. I want to know that you and I can have fun together and trust each other. And he said he went on to say, the reason for that is because if we invite you to join us, I don't expect you to go anywhere else. Now, Jake, I've already had 4 different jobs in 8 years since graduate school. So I'm a little caught off guard by the answer. But he still wasn't finished. He said, the most important thing we do here is who we invite into the organization. And he said, if we think you're the right fit, it's going to be because of all those issues, not just whether you can do marketing or not. And he said, I'm trusting Jimmy and others to come back to me and give me a recommendation. Well, in 2 weeks they did. They offered me the job. I started in January of 1981. And you're correct. They had about 140 stores and sales of under 100 million. They were all in malls. I walked in literally clean sheet of paper, an office that was in a trailer attached to a Butler building. And it was your classic, even at that stage of the business, it was still a classic startup entrepreneur business. So that's what I walked into. And so as a result, I was engaged suddenly in an environment and with an operator network of people who did not understand marketing, as you alluded to. Mm-hmm. And my role was to help them understand, okay, how can I help you not only sell more sandwiches, but with time I learned the bigger issue is how can I help you grow a brand so you can sell more sandwiches profitably, make more money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got started, and started to build the team in 1981.
There's so many questions here. I want to ask you why you wrote the book and this and that, but that first one, what are the 3 C's to hiring? Let me list them for everybody, because this is really important. I hit Jake with it.
They're all encapsulated in that conversation with Truett. One is competency. Can the person do the job? Mm-hmm. And most organizations are all over that. Mm-hmm. The second one is chemistry. Is this someone that people can follow? Can they get along? Can they have fun? Can they create fellowship through personal influence rather than through position power? Mm-hmm. And the third one is character. Can I trust them? Are they going to do what they say they're going to do? Mm-hmm. Can I, as a result, unleash empowerment and not have to worry about this person? And I have to tell you, Gino, that that's what Truett was saying to me, was I'm more concerned about the chemistry issue and the character issue. But I wasn't there very long, as I discussed in the book, that I figured out that they did trust me, even though I had a major blow-up mistake in my second year. And he, through my entire career there, Truett, always supported me, always had my back. I can honestly tell you that not one time did he ever call me to his office and say, "Why'd you do that?" or "You screwed up." Mm-hmm. I did, but he never did anything to undermine in me the confidence that I felt he had in me.
I have to ask this question. You had 4 jobs in 8 years. What did he see in you to think that you were going to be a long-term fit? Because he probably didn't understand the marketing aspect of it. And he sees this young whippersnapper coming out, having a great job at Six Flags, thinks he's going to come in here, get the marketing going and flip and get into a bigger job. What did he see in your character, in your personality?
I want to be transparent, but also humble here. I don't know that Truett saw it initially. I think it was Jimmy Collins, who was the COO. And that really started 2 years previously, when I had approached Jimmy about building a Chick-fil-A restaurant in the Six Flags over Georgia Park. Mm-hmm. And we had interaction around finding a location, designing it, doing a pro forma. They walked away because they wanted to make money on the deal. And we had made it very clear, you're not going to make money on this deal. We're going to help you build trial and build your brand. But if anybody's going to make money in that restaurant, it's going to be Six Flags. But they had interaction with me over a period of several months. And they had also hired a headhunter. So they had vetted me in the Atlanta community. They are very thorough. They knew what I was doing amazingly a lot about my private life, what was important to me. They knew about my family. So they had a pretty good run up before Jimmy called me in August of 1980 to say, "Would you have an interest in interviewing?"
Mm-hmm. Love that. Steve, can you give the listeners what your definition of marketing is? This may take 30 minutes to give it up, but really let people understand what your job as a marketer is.
Yeah. Well, mine's probably a little bit different than most. I think most people define marketing as a discipline to drive transactions. My definition is great marketing builds a brand, creates brand advocates who then sell stuff. I mean, that's my headline on it. I would much prefer to operate in an environment where marketing is creating a clear and legitimate brand image, brand reputation that people discover they can't live without, like Chick-fil-A. And those people, like you guys, apparently become the brand ambassadors for the business. Now, Chick-fil-A has been running high same-store sales growth, not only while I was there, but after I left, still, even during the pandemic. And it's not because of the stuff that the marketing department in Atlanta is doing. It's because the marketing strategy of engaging local leadership to build relationships with customers. And those customers are the ones driving traffic, driving word of mouth. So it's a totally different focus. One's a focus on transaction. My focus was focused on brand. Create a valuable brand, a relevant brand, one people cannot live without, and you will grow the business. And the funny thing happens, Gino, when you have a brand like that, people come more often. They tell others. And by the way, they'll also tell you if they think you screwed up. And they're more than willing to pay full price. You don't have to discount. You don't have to deal.
Yes. So those are the 3 outcomes, everybody. First of all, I have to recap that, and I have to have everyone write this down because it's important. The typical marketing is discipline to drive transactions. That's what the typical marketer does. We don't want to do that. All the Jake and Gino community, that is basically transaction based, right? You don't want to treat your customer as a transaction. That's one of our nevers with Jake and Gino. We never treat a customer as a transaction. That's important. You want great marketing to build the brand and to create raving fans, customer advocates. And everybody write this also down. The 3 outcomes are really important. They're going to come more often. They're going to pay full price. And they're going to tell others. So it's guerrilla marketing. So that's really important, everybody. We're all trying to create a brand.
They're going to tell you too if you screw up.
Yes.
Because the brand is that important to them.
Mm-hmm. Man, that is powerful. Why did you write the book?
That's a great question. I left the full-time position at the end of 15. I was on the Chick-fil-A board for 3 years, and about halfway into that, I was going back to the office not only for board meetings, but occasionally to do orientation sessions with new staff members. And they were growing so fast, Gino, that I was encountering literally dozens and dozens and hundreds of staff members who I didn't know, who was, as I would share the history of Chick-fil-A and my personal walk through that history, they didn't know any of the stories. I mean, some of them didn't know the fundamental story of why the Chick-fil-A corporate purpose was written and when and what was the catalyst for it. And so I asked Dan Cathy, would you give me the rights, the IP rights I need to write a book? I want to try to write a chronological story, and it's going to have three key pieces: story of the brand, story of your father, and my story. And I'm going to tell the first 2 from my perspective. And having almost 35 years being a staff member and then 3 more on the board, I got to see Chick-fil-A go from, as I said earlier, a startup entrepreneurial business to an iconic brand. And a brand now, in fact, I think last year they passed 14 billion in sales. So they're obviously not missing me. They've doubled sales. They've more than doubled sales.
You got them on autopilot now.
But they've doubled sales because they have protected the fundamental pillars of the culture and the brand. And they've stuck to the raving fan strategy: operational excellence, hospitality, and emotional engagement with customers through marketing. And as they've stuck with the operator model, they've stuck with all the core principles that made that brand successful. And so they just keep creating these raving fans who are promoting the business. So I wrote the book first and foremost for the Chick-fil-A family, to answer your question. And after it was finished and I started sharing it with people to ask for some endorsements, almost all of them came back to me and said, well, this is a great book for the Chick-fil-A family, but I think you need to pick a publisher that can help you get beyond the Chick-fil-A family. And I picked the Nelson Group out of Nashville. And they've been incredibly helpful. They helped me edit it. My son, who's an art designer and owns his own agency, actually designed the cover. And so the book has done, I think, better than what maybe the publisher thought it would do. And we've actually sold more books outside the Chick-fil-A family than inside the Chick-fil-A family.
You know why? Because it's an amazing product, like the company that you worked for. I mean, there's so many golden nuggets. I could go on for hours and hours, and I have so many quotes here. Can you explain branding is the totality of customer experience and the brand is the business? I mean, that's an amazing quote if you really sit down and you can digest that for hours. You want to dive into that for a little bit?
Well, I use that quote all the time, Gino, and I use it for literally decades because when I joined Chick-fil-A, they were focused on transactions. And so part of the journey was to try to help the entire organization realize that everything and anything anybody did that touched the customer either built the brand or hurt the brand. So it didn't matter whether you were in operations, marketing, at the home office, through the ad agency, it didn't matter. If anything you worked on had an interface with the customer, you either were making Chick-fil-A stronger or you were diluting it. And so somebody say, well, how might you dilute it? Well, you dilute it, for example, if you discount or you deal on it. You dilute it if you're not courteous and proactive with hospitality. You dilute it if your marketing looks like everybody else in the fast food business and it's not different, uniquely yours. You dilute it if product quality is not the same every time. So that quote was part of an educational process of helping everyone in the organization understand that you're not walking into a functional silo, whether it's an operator or accounting or finance or marketing. Well, you're walking into a brand. You're either going to help this brand get stronger every day, or you're going to hurt it. And that it took root. And I would say by the late 90s, everybody was bought in that this is a brand business, and our marketing department really evolved to become a brand department, brand development department. No one became more passionate and focused about the value of the brand and keeping it relevant than Truett and Dan Cathy. So that helps. Didn't start that way, but once they got on board and we started studying other great brands and engaged the leadership in not just studying, but taking trips to places like Zappo and Nike and Apple and Nordstrom's, Southwest Airlines, USAA Insurance. I mean, we physically went to these enterprise leasing, met leadership, went to their customer-facing sites. Why are these organizations highly valued by the customer? Why do they have raving fans? What is it they do? And then we literally over years, we took those learnings and tried to bring them back into the Chick-fil-A system and integrate them not just as ideas, but literal practices, whether it was operations, hospitality, marketing, standards, systems, training, measurements. Really, the simplicity of that we picked up from what Toyota did with zero defects. You got to have clear standards. You got to have clear systems or processes to create those standards. You got to measure whether you're delivering the outcome you want. And you got to find out whether customers value it. Is that in fact what they want? So we just tried to permeate that process in everything. Eventually, to give you an illustration, the innovation process at Chick-fil-A moved under the leadership of the marketing group because we had the resources of research, customer listening systems, and I guess the brand mindset to be able to facilitate innovation for anyone within the organization. So we had innovation clients at our, what we called Hatch, our innovation center. It was a physical facility. And we would take them, we had people on the marketing staff who would facilitate projects for internal clients, whether it was menu, interfacing technology, creative, menu boards, store design, whatever. So that's a long answer to your question, but creating a strong brand culture is a journey. And you haven't asked the question, but I think the greatest threat is leadership turnover. One of the reasons it worked there, and one of the reasons I was able to be a part of that journey, was Truett didn't go anywhere. Cathy family didn't go anywhere. All of our key leadership didn't go anywhere, including my team. So you build all this institutional knowledge and skill set and kind of create this flywheel, which I think we've heard about that before. And So you create momentum within the organization where everyone starts to become really good at thinking through the lens of the customer and how to shape the brand. And that's the ultimate outcome that we had. It was an incredible experience, and they seem to be doing a good job keeping it up.
My next question is about Truett. His quote that he has: "A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than gold or silver." When I read that, to me, that's just resonates with me 150%. And I want to work, or I want to build a company that is just, I mean, you look at that and you say, wow, God put Truett on this earth, a humble person, and he's not worrying about what anybody says. He's not worrying about how much money he makes. He's worrying about being a steward of his money, being a steward of his company. And it's ironic that God uses people like Truett, like Steve, like Gino, like Jake. We're all stewards, right? And if we have that mentality, we're out there serving others and we're not worrying about ourselves, right? It's seek to serve. And that's very difficult. And he uses people that you would least expect it. You look at the disciples. I mean, they're all, whether they're tax collectors or whatever it is, you look at them and you're like, he picked them? He picked Truett? Why do you think God picked Truett? I mean, like, what made him stand out? What made him a great leader?
Gino, great question. A lot of reasons. Truett, first of all, was an incredibly humble guy.
Mm-hmm.
Genuine. He was humble. He was not on some personal agenda to elevate himself. Secondly, even though he ultimately became very wealthy, he was not greedy. He wanted to steward the business in such a way that he could help other people, not just customers, but through the performance of the business, help other people. And that, if you read the book, there's a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. There's literally thousands of millions of people that have been helped and touched by Chick-fil-A because of Truett's lack of greediness, his generosity. So he was generous. I think he was actually, as an entrepreneur, a genius. Now, this guy didn't go to college. He finished high school and went into the military. Came back and immediately opened his little diner, the Door Grill. But he had an intuitive sense on how to make good decisions. And the operator agreement is a perfect example of that. It's ingenious. And I can say it's ingenious because it's never had to be changed. And it's also generous because it highly rewards the local operator who runs a Chick-fil-A restaurant. Mm-hmm. I mean, the income these men and women are making is off the charts compared to other people leading fast food restaurants on the street. But the beauty of that deal is generosity, and the structure of it is the reason nobody else is ever going to recreate it. So, and I can't tell you how many times I bring opportunities to him for decisions, and his response was, well, do you think it's going to be good for the business? In other words, it's just got to help our reputation. Mm-hmm. And he was counting on me and others to do the math, do the financial stewardship, but he was always more concerned about protecting and building the image, the reputation of Chick-fil-A. And in fact, that verse was on his desk the day I had that last interview. And I commented to him, I said, Truett, what's that verse all about? And he told me a story about how it was his favorite, it was his life verse. He had picked it as a young child in elementary school and actually given a report in the classroom on it. Not a lot of that going around right now, but no, anyway. And I commented as I left, I said, well, Truett, we've talked a little bit about brand here. Let me just put it in your terms. That verse is what a great brand's all about. Mm-hmm. A great brand is a reputation people can trust. And that at his core, that's all he ever wanted. He obviously left a thriving, highly successful business, but he was a man that you wanted to follow simply because of his integrity, his authenticity. He was fun, he was generous, and he was intuitively wise. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So last question before we go to the short answers with Jake. I see Jake is just dying to jump in here. So give me a little bit more time. I mean, honestly, everyone, they have to read the book because there's so many stories. I'm not sure if we have time for the $2 million mistake, but this one's more important. It's about Truett. How did he not, when he started growing his infrastructure, you have a great story of his infrastructure. He was almost saying to himself, how am I not going to outgrow it? Because I know he was worried about paying off debt and everything. And this is another counterintuitive thing for what's going on right now. Everyone's saying lever up and expand and take big risk. He did the opposite, it seemed like, and paid off really well for him in the long run. It's all about long-term thinking, everybody. It's planting the seed, watering it, and worrying about it long-term. Don't worry about what happens tomorrow. Let's worry about what happens 3 or 5 years from now. So could you share that story with us?
Well, I will share the story, but I'll share it first with a great illustration of it. In the 90s, we started putting freestanding restaurants on the street, and we were trying to buy the real estate. That's less available today. Now more and more is ground leases, but back then we were trying to buy the dirt. Sure, wanted the real estate. And as we geared up, we were borrowing money for the site and even the building shell. And then we were using cash only to finish out the restaurant. So we were basically trying to kind of replicate the way we did mall deals, where we're leasing a spot and then we're putting cash into finishing out the space. Well, we've run up in a few years, we've run up a pretty big debt of, I don't mind telling you, $250 million. And Truett turns 80. And he walks into the executive committee one morning, and it's his birthday week, and he seldom showed up. And so Jimmy said, "Truett, what you got on your mind?" He said, "Well, I've decided the guy who's 80 years old shouldn't have $250 million in debt. I want to know how you're going to get me out of debt. And I want to be out of debt before I die." Now, at the time we thought, and we said it, we said, "Truett, we're only leveraging debt against hard assets." And his attitude was, "I don't care. I want the flexibility of not having so much debt that I can do what I want to do when I want to do it." Whether it's giving or investing in an idea. And he said, "I don't want to leave a legacy of debt to the business or my kids and the next generation of the Cathy family." So we took out on a process where 7 or 8 years we retired the debt. So here's the upshot of that, Gino. When you don't have debt, if you operate on cash, that's where we got. When I walked out of Chick-fil-A, no debt. Not even cash flow loan, line of credit, no debt. Here's what happens when you operate with no debt. You have to stay within your means. And so you've got to wrestle, how are we going to invest dollars? How are we going to invest, how much money in stores? How much money in reinvesting in existing stores? How much money in infrastructure? How much money in marketing or new product innovation? And every dollar is an opportunity cost on some other potential investment. And there's only so much money. And because money also ties to talent, there's only so much talent. And it forces you to be a disciplined steward, to operate within the confines of what you have available to you, both money and people. And in effect, he put in this natural, solid check and balance system. We didn't just have the check and balance of our corporate purpose and our values. We had the check and balance of we can't go out and borrow money because we want to do this before we can really afford to do it. And he was wise enough to know that if he put us under the discipline of no debt, it was harder, not impossible, but it was harder to do anything stupid and get out ahead of our skis. Now, you could probably say I could take that to Washington. I'm not sure it would preach up there, but anybody in business and anybody who's trying to run a household, I think in their core knows that makes a lot of sense. And the business was healthier as a result. And then when we did start to grow and we're operating only on cash, that discipline of you only use what you've got really kept them from growing too fast. Because the underbelly of that is if you use debt to grow faster, very often what happens is you don't properly build the infrastructure, talent, systems, et cetera, to support the growth. And I can sit here and start naming restaurant brands that collapsed because they grew faster than the home office could support them.
Please name a couple of brands so people actually go, wow. That your story resonates completely with me. Makes total sense. I think you're not beholden to anybody, right? You're not beholden to the debt person. Debt is a form of slavery nowadays. When you have to pay the till to somebody else, you don't have that freedom. You don't have the choice to stay home and not work one day. So,
right.
A couple of brands.
Well, a brand called Delights. Most people probably have, but they were a up and comer, health oriented burger chain, and they actually had a solid concept. But they actually didn't just borrow money; they issued stock. And they started building more York stores than they could support. I've seen chains like Wendy's grow faster than they support and have to pull back. We've seen retailers, do that. I don't want to start naming too many brands because I don't want to offend anybody, but it's not an unusual phenomenon.
It's very common.
And this happens because you have leadership who comes in different philosophy. And even if you had conservative leadership, now suddenly you have aggressive leadership and they start borrowing more money or doing IPO and they get out ahead of their skis and the business gets in trouble. It's really not uncommon. And as a nation, quite frankly, I think right now that's where we are. I think we're getting way out of our skis.
Steve, it's very interesting because we're in multifamily real estate, but the similarities to what, everything that Chick-fil-A has done, fast food, restaurants, whatever, we're buying buildings, but then we're serving the folks that live there. And that's the service model. It's so similar, but I think people think, well, this is restaurant, this is multifamily apartments. It's really it's so similar in so many ways. And that's why we just have latched on to everything that you have done with Chick-fil-A. And it's been such a good role model for us. And we just, first and foremost want to say thank you, because those teachings for us, right? We're up and coming new entrepreneurial business. It gives us that foundation, that roadmap for what good looks like. So I want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Are you looking for ways to improve your life?
Here at Jake and Gino, our mission is to empower students through financial education and the vehicle of multifamily investing.
Yes, Jake. We agree that a person with financial intelligence can change the world for the better.
We've created our proprietary 3-step framework, buy right, manage right, and finance right, that we teach to our community. This framework, along with education, our one-on-one mentorship, on-site boot camps, and the amazing community, has propelled our students to massive success.
We've all been there. We've had so many students that have been able to shift their mindset, overcome limiting beliefs, and set a clear path to achieve their goals. Whether you're currently fixing and flipping, wholesaling, or buying single-family rentals, and you know that multifamily investing is the right vehicle for you, I encourage you to visit jakeandgino.com/apply to schedule your complimentary consultation with our team. And I want to let you know this isn't a high-pressure sales call. It's really just a discovery call to get to know each other better and see if we're a good fit for working together. And if for any reason we're not a good fit, our team has tons of resources we will share with you to help you along your journey.
If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels, go to jakeandgino.com/apply and schedule your call now. All right, we're back, and I'm seeing this common theme here, and I may be off, but I wanted to ask you the importance of long-term thinking and commitment, because whether it's the brand or the cows, for example, everything that was done seemed to have this extremely long-term thinking in mind. Can you touch on that? Because it seems like there was no variation. You didn't veer. You stuck to it once you made a decision.
Yes. Well, one of the advantages of being privately owned is you don't have to chase, excuse me, you don't have to chase quarterly earnings. You don't have to go out and, as we already talked about, borrow a bunch of money to grow fast to satisfy stockholders, whatever. Truett was not motivated by growth. He wasn't motivated by making a lot of money. He was motivated by building an organization that would last and serve people as it grew, those within the business and those outside of the business. His focus was on serving others. And so we're working for a guy that is not concerned about 90 days from now. He's concerned about long-term health, long-term value in the marketplace, and quite frankly, something to pass on to the next generation of his family. Well, what does that do in the marketing and brand arena? As you said, it allows you to think long-term. Okay, so we didn't do, for example, I'll give you some examples. We didn't do menu items to put on the menu for 90 days and take them away. Limited time only. It had to be good enough to go on the menu and stay. Now, if something comes off the menu, and it does, if something comes off the menu, it's because the customer's tastes and preferences change with time. And you make those changes based upon customer feedback, not based upon ownership preferences or operational ease. And when I joined Chick-fil-A, a lot of decisions were being made in those two camps. What did ownership want, or what was operational easy, as opposed to what do customers want? So it allows you to be very customer focused and improve the brand over time based upon what they're telling you. So for us, it's food, it's the service experience, it's speed, it's how do we use technology? What are they saying about technology? I mean, the customer helped us design Chick-fil-A One, the app. The cow campaign, it evolved. It started as just a billboard idea, but it became an iconic campaign because customers loved it, and they associated Chick-fil-A as being different, special, fun, unlike all those other guys who are basically just showing you food and price and trying to get you to buy something. Okay, so that long term, the cows were entertaining people and building emotional equity in the brand. At the store level, long term, the operator agreement never changed. Not one piece of it. And so for those that don't know about it, the operator pays a percentage off the top for the use of the brand. That also funds all the services out of the home office, accounting, marketing, operations, training, et cetera. After all their expenses in the stores, the operating bottom line is split between the operator and the home office. So the operator's income is that half net, that half operating net. Well, that net has grown more than 12-fold since I joined the firm in 1981. And it's actually more than doubled since I left in 2015. But the deal hasn't changed long term. Now, why is that important? People have to know, great brands, whether it's inside or out, people have to know they can trust the brand. Operators need to know they can trust the deal. Customers need to know that Chick-fil-A has my best interest at heart. They're going to give me the right food, the right ingredients, a great experience. And they actually treat me like they care. They acknowledge I'm there. They look me in the eye. They say my pleasure. Some of the team members even learn my name. Well, there's not a lot of that going around in fast food. But because you have an operator in the store, they're attracting talent, they're training talent, and they're keeping that talent longer. So your talent actually has a chance to learn not only great habits, but to learn names. All the benefits of having a long-term horizon, it's this ripple effect that builds these multiple layers like an onion of value in the brand. But it's all about continually building trust and relevance in the brand. And you do that over time. You don't do that with short-term jolts of promotions or deals, or you add a product, you take it away, or you change products without listening to customers, or you change the operator deal and suddenly you got leadership turnover in the restaurants. I mean, the operator turnover is less than 3% a year. And half of that's roughly retirement. The other half is performance issues where somebody had to be asked to leave. Not many. Mm-hmm. So that longevity and that continuity creates a foundation. And for me as a leader and my team, it gave us room, both intellectual and time, to innovate. So, for example, second mile service, which is the second pillar of the raving fan strategy, it took 7 years to listen to customers and develop the hospitality behaviors that we wanted to use, the training systems, the recruitment systems, the measurement systems, and to help the operators understand through 2 years of in-store testing that if you do this and do it well, you'll actually grow your business faster and more profitably. And second mile service is not just a case of caring for people, it actually fosters those people becoming marketers for you, like we talked about earlier. Yeah, like you. So it's a long-term horizon is crucial, but I'll stop with this, Jake. It means fundamentally there's 2 cornerstones to it. You got to have clear culture, clear vision. Why do you exist, and what's most important around here? And some people call them values. I call them principles upon which you'll fall on a sword. So if your purpose is clear and your principles are clear, then the second key cornerstone is voice of the customer. Yeah, we care what the Cathy family thinks about. We care what the operators think about stuff. Well, we're going to first listen to the customers around any issue in the business. Menu issues, hospitality issues, packaging issues, technology issues, advertising issues. And my last 3 or 4 years there, the entire business plan was literally written around a model of what we call brand touch points. And every piece of the business plan that had a brand touch point had a voice of the customer input. We're not doing anything with an app until we know what customers love about apps, hate about apps, what they expect from Chick-fil-A from an app, and how do we going to let the personality and the local leadership of an operator migrate to this.
Has to be an extension of the brand.
Has to be an extension of the brand. Has to be an extension of the actual experience in the stores. And everything has to be an extension of the customer experience in the stores, or at a football game, or at a parade, or at any sort of community engagement.
Were the cows ever challenged, and did you know what you're getting into at the time? Because I mean, you stuck with the cows forever. It's that long-term mindset. Yeah. Were they ever challenged? Did you ever start to veer from the cows? And did you know at the time that they were going to be there forever?
Well, we didn't know. The first billboard ran in Atlanta in 1996, is right south of the Olympic Stadium. That was the very first board, and it was just a board idea. Turned out to be a huge hit. Within 90 days, we put up a board just like it in our top 20 markets. Created all kind of buzz in the markets. In fact, I talked about, we had one in Chattanooga. We had 2 cows stolen off their billboard, and created all sort of conversation in the media and radio stations, etc. So that reaction to one board said to myself and 2 or 3 guys, 2 or 3 people on my team, we may have an idea here bigger than just one billboard. And we went back to the Richards Group at the agency and said, we think you've got an idea here bigger than a billboard. And Stan Richards would give us, our team, credit for making that observation and challenging them. What would this look like as a campaign? So I was trying to lead the organization not to focus on just showing food photographs and price, because you can put a chicken sandwich on a billboard and you really can't tell whose product it is. So why spend advertising dollars showing something that looks just like McDonald's or Wendy's or Hardee's? Well, suddenly we had these cows being ambassadors of the brand, breaking through the clutter, making people laugh.
And it's beef, not chicken, so the brain's having to work, right?
Oh yeah, beef. Yeah. And we're attacking the beef brands, but we're having fun at it. Nobody really.
Not being offensive, right? Yeah.
No offensive. So they set out on a 3-month assignment. Okay, what would this look like in a complete campaign, in store, on media, etc. And we stuck with it for 22 years. Now, to your question, did anybody push back on it? Yes. within the organization, people push back on it because, to be fair, the operators are out on the street with all these other major brands, and they're pushing product and price. And myself and my leadership team keep saying, we're not going to do that.
Why can't we be like them, Dad? Right? Yeah.
We're not going to be like them, Dad. And by the way, if you want to push product, you go out and give it away. Don't discount it. Don't coupon it. You give it away. You use Be Our Guest cards. You take food to fire stations and schools and sports events. You take the real stuff. You be generous. Why? Because the other guys aren't going to do that. And we know that if we get people to try Chick-fil-A, high percentage become hooked. I don't know what's in the coder, but it works every time. So, everything we looked at, including the cows, was, what is the industry doing? Okay, let's figure out how we do the opposite. In my book, I call it renegade. And what happened over time was, not knowing we were doing it, over time, using that filter, we were developing a brand that was a Blue Ocean brand. And there's a book on that whole strategy.
Love that. Yes.
And, we read, as a team, we read that book, and we all sat around the table discussing the book one day, and we said, well, this is kind of what we're doing. So how do we just continue to get better at it?
Yeah.
And we help the operators understand, if you don't believe us, believe this research, believe this authority, believe this book, read the book. This is the kind of brand we're trying to create. And the end result is you're going to make a lot more money, be more profitable, and the brand will be healthier because you won't look like all the other guys. And you're not going to discount, you're not going to deal, etc. So the cow campaign was just one illustration of taking a renegade position. And once we realized what we had, the charge to the agency was, you got to keep it fresh, you got to keep it funny, because we're never going to outspend our competition on media. We got to create chatter because the creative is just that good.
And Steve, that's what was genius about the whole marketing brand, was you're competing against other brands that can outspend you 10 to 1, 15 to 1. Number one. Yeah. Number two, it's really new. No one's really doing it. And number three, you actually were able to insult teachers because you spelled chicken wrong. And so if you can insult people while you're marketing in a good way, I think you've done a great job, right? So that's that.
I love teachers about that issue, and I always wrote back and said, well, I'm sorry, but cows can't spell. And so you might want to use the cows as an object lesson to help you get spelled correctly. So yeah, you're right. And I interesting, most of the other brands out there are still showing product and price.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll scratch my head and have a concern for Chick-fil-A if they start doing that.
So Steve, is that character ethic versus personality ethic? The character ethic is long-term brand building. The personality ethic, as Stephen Covey says, is price and get the transaction and get it short-term, be flashy and the character ethic, what we want to build as entities, as core values. That's what we want. We want what Chick-fil-A is building, and hopefully what the Jake and Gino brand is building.
I shared in the book, we were doing brand research all the time, and we did a major study in 2012 to really better understand and stay current on what people thought about the Chick-fil-A brand. And we had, now we're well into the raving fan strategy by this time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an epiphany that what we heard back were 4 words: where good meets gracious. These were not our words. These were the dominant themes that came through that research. And this was a large scale group of focus groups. It's qualitative research. And so what that means for us, what that meant for Chick-fil-A, is we have a brand that's not focused on competing on food. I mean, food was valued. The conversations eventually got to the food, but the conversations that always seemed to lead around these interaction issues of how people were treated. No matter where you encounter Chick-fil-A, we met them eye to eye, face to face. The experience was good. The food was good. The environment was good. and I was always treated with gracious hospitality, like they really care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the evolution of the brand from being a place that just sells sandwiches to now a place where I go there first and foremost because I like the way I'm treated.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, then the food's really good too. Most fast food, most restaurant brands are. Let me restate that. Most high traffic restaurant brands are never going to go that way. They're transaction oriented. Now the irony is, the restaurants you and I really love to go to, the high end white tablecloth brands in our communities, they are where good meets gracious brands.
Mm-hmm.
I can name right here in Atlanta. Bones, Blue Ridge Grill, Canoe, all within a couple of miles of my home. The food's good, but we keep going there because of the way we're treated, and they probably have my credit card memorized. They know us. And that's what people want. Well, if you bring that mentality into a high traffic environment, which is what Chick-fil-A attempted to do, and I think is pretty well done, it transforms not just the experience, it transformed the business. And Chick-fil-A was able to do it. I'll make this really clear. They were able to do it not just because of the purpose and the focus on long-term performance, but we were able to execute it because of having a highly competent leader in every restaurant. Not a manager, a real business leader in every restaurant. Part of Truett's genius was he figured out how to recreate himself. And when we realized what he had done, and I talk about it in the book, all of our focus around not just marketing, but everything around customer touch points was focused on how do we activate this idea through the operator family, not from Atlanta, through the operator family. And they execute well, and the results speak for themselves.
Jay, can I mention one more thing before another question?
He's just, it's just not fair, Steve. He's just, he's
I
just
mean, like
he just can't contain himself.
I'm having all these epiphanies because what Steve just said about Truett is amazing. Most leaders have an ego. They would never want to replicate themselves. And he said to himself, I'm here working for God. I'm here working for others. I want others to know what I know. How many leaders out there can you count on your fingers that would want to do that? That just stood out to me right away. And we want to be like that because we want to teach others and we want to leave others a lasting impression and help others out. So that whole mantra right there, that's the reason why Chick-fil-A is successful right there, bro. Sorry.
He was humble, but he really wanted to figure out how to give himself away.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
His values, his principles, and he's willing, obviously, to have money associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell the story. It's in the book. I didn't tell you guys the story here, but when he was developing Chick-fil-A, he started 2 stores that had managers in it. They kept calling him with questions and problems. And he decided, I don't want to build any more restaurants. I don't want these problems. So there's also an issue for Truett of wanting to give himself away and empower others, because he realized my life will actually be a lot simpler if I have empowered decision makers in every restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to call the home office. They got an idea, they got to call the home office and share it, but they can test an idea in a restaurant and whether it's second mile service or 0 defects or milkshakes, those were all operator generated ideas, by the way. He realized that if I build a network of men and women who think like I did when I was running my restaurant, entrepreneur, every customer is important, attract and keep great talent, then it would just grow on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not dependent upon me to drive growth or make all the decisions.
All right. I'm getting a word in here. I don't want to get like tackled by Gino right now, but I'm just saying. So, all right. I have my takeaway here, but for the folks out there that are listening, they're entrepreneurs, they're starting their business. What is your best tip for someone scaling their marketing organization?
My best tip, assuming Well, I'll give you two.
We'll take it.
Make darn sure your purpose, your cultural values are clear. Your purpose and what's really important are clear. People have to know why they're getting up and going to work. And they have to, more importantly, know what motivates you as the leader. So if that is in place, then secondly, my second tip is build everything around how you listen to customers. Don't make any crucial decision about how you're going to create product, services, or interface with customers without talking to them. Whether it's focus groups, phone surveys, internet surveys, getting in the car and going out and talking to them one-on-one. Let the voice of the customer drive your innovation and your continuous improvement. Don't let your personal agenda, your personal ego, oh, this is a great idea, it's mine.
I like bacon on my chicken.
Yeah, I like such on my chicken. That is totally, customers don't care who owns Chick-fil-A. You hear me?
Yep.
They don't care who owns Chick-fil-A. Now, there's stories out there. If you want to find out, you can. They don't care who owns Chick-fil-A. At best, they care about who runs their local restaurant, who the operators, who the team members are, who's that young lady as they see every morning when they pick up breakfast. They don't care who owns Chick-fil-A. And there's probably not many businesses out there where the customer, the end user, cares about who owns the business. Now, the only time they care about who owns the business if the owner does something stupid. They say something or they do something that affects the customer's experience with the brand. Now they care who owns it. So lead with culture, and secondly, lead with discipline. Listen to your customers systematically, all the time.
Steve, what did you love most about your time there? What was, you reflecting back, what was your most favorite thing about the time spent at Chick-fil-A?
There's no question. It was because of the kind of culture and environment and the empowerment activity was encouraged. Risk-taking was okay. As I tell in the book, I made some big mistakes. I survived it. I learned from it. The spirit of innovation was contagious, still is. Because if you're not innovating, if you're not improving the relevance and the value of the brand, then you're going to die. And so embedded in that, I love the people. Because we were surrounded with people who were energetic, creative, fun to be with. They weren't going anywhere. So I could pour myself into people. My leaders could pour themselves into people. We could nurture talent. And then over time, you have talent that could move all over the organization and make contributions beyond just a skill set. They can make contributions because of what they learned about the entire business, because of who they were, their institutional knowledge of the customer, et cetera. And so you got people, over half the marketing department today didn't work for me. They're either new or they've been moved around from other groups into the marketing department as part of their growth process. And other marketing people that did work for me are somewhere else in the business. Well, I love that because that means they're taking the brand mentality and the voice of the customer discipline into other areas of the business. So again, a long answer, but what I loved was the freedom to innovate and having great people to work with to do it.
All right, Gino, good luck with this one, but I want to hear a recap here.
You mind if you give me a minute to recap this, Jake? I know I've killed you this podcast. I'm normally the one who's a little bit more reserved, but it's been, to me, an amazing hour. I've learned a tremendous amount. And, Steve Robinson, who's had four jobs in 8 years, goes and meets Truett Cathy. It takes him 5 months to get through the interview process. A little subterfuge there. I think 98% of the people on this planet probably would have quit. And I think the 3 C's that came out of that, competency, character, and chemistry, were amazing. I mean, that's what he learned from that whole interview. And having 140 stores with about $100 million when he took over in 1981, growing that, not even having a marketing department, and having the ability to make a $2 million mistake with coupons and learning from that mistake, and having a leader like Truett, who I said seemed like he was selfless. He had no ego, and he wanted the best from his people, and he wanted that long-term outlook. I mean, listen, can you explain branding is the totality of customer experience and the brand is the business? Bringing that through your whole 35-year career. I mean, actually going from a national organization to the entire nation, growing it in 35 years. And, leaving off with this, Jake, the Chick-fil-A mission statement: to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us, and to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A and with Steve Robinson. Now, I want everyone listening to the podcast to go out there and write your mission statement, because that's truly important to become clear on what you stand for if you want to become a leader. And I leave you with this quote, Jake: profit is the fuel. It's not the destination. And I think that embodies Truett, and embodies Steve Robinson, and that embodies Chick-fil-A.
Nice summary.
Well done, sir. Well done, Steve. This has been great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. The book is on Amazon. I got the Audible because I like to listen to them more. Steve, final words.
Well, I just love the fact that after being gone now over 5 years from full-time employment, I have a platform to have moments like this because of Truett Cathy. And because of what I learned from him and what I learned from everybody else I worked with for 35 years. And it's a story I still love to tell, because I think it was not only a life-changing story for me, but I think as you guys have obviously demonstrated, it'd be a life-changing story for others. So yes. I'm extremely honored that you gave me the opportunity to tell the story a little bit.
We're honored to have you here. This is a treat. Thank you.
I'm honored to do it. And I'll sign off with you guys. I think I'm going to be able to play golf today.
Perfect.
So thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Guys, down below, the Covert Cows, go out and buy it. I wrote the book review. You don't have to read the book review. Buy the book. It will be a life-changing $20. Yes. Don't buy Starbucks for the week. Buy the book if you have to choose one or the other. I promise you. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you, Gino.